The face of the campaign trail continues to change as Senator Ted Cruz gains a major endorsement in former rival Jeb Bush. Meanwhile, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan is weighing in on the tone of the race for the White House. Fox News' Doug McKelway has the very latest on that. Hi, Doug.
Hi, David. The Speaker's remarks today reflect more than Paul Ryan's desire for a civil discourse. It's also a realization of the huge role that he's going to play as chairman at the GOP convention if no candidate reaches that magic 1237 delegate threshold. And with last night's split decision, Cruz taking Utah and Trump taking Arizona, a contested convention still is very much a possibility. Hence Ryan's need to stay neutral and to call for civility without naming any names.
Our political discourse, both the kind that we see on TV and the kind that we experience among each other, it did not used to be this bad, and it does not have to be this way. Now, a little skepticism, that is really healthy. But when people distrust politics, they come to distrust institutions.
And only moments after Ryan made that call for civility, it was broken. Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid's spokesman fired off a statement that said Speaker Ryan is speechifying on the deck of the Titanic, running a do-nothing Congress while supporting Donald Trump, a racist demagogue, for president. In fact, Ryan has never made any statements in support of Donald Trump and has on at least 3 occasions criticized Trump's positions and language. But Reid's spokesman's statement pales in comparison to the depths to which the 2 leading GOP presidential candidates have sunk on Twitter. Trump accused Cruz of disrespecting his wife, Melania. Quote, "Lion Ted Cruz just used a picture of Melania from a GQ shoot in his ad. Be careful, Lion Ted, or I'll spill the beans on your wife." Well, Cruz struck back, quote, "Pick of your wife, not from us. Donald, if you try to attack Heidi, you're more of a coward than I thought." Cruz continues to gain momentum, securing the endorsements of more and more mainstream Republicans who used to reject him, including Jeb Bush, who today called Cruz a principled conservative. But a new Quinnipiac poll out today finds that Trump has a 14-point lead over Cruz, and that even if Ohio Governor John Kasich were to drop out of the race, Cruz still trails by 9 points. David, back to you.
Okay, more on the feud over the wives coming up right here. Meanwhile, Doug McKelway, thank you very much. Melissa.
So after scoring the winner-take-all state of Arizona, Trump has a total of 19 state wins, but he wasn't the only winner last night. In spite of Cruz's 40-delegate sweep in Utah, the fight for delegates remains relatively unchanged. Trump still has to win more than 53% of the remaining delegates in order to take the nomination. Here to weigh in, Lee Carter, GOP communications strategist, and Rebecca Berg, Real Clear Politics national political reporter. So we just gave you the numbers because I care about the numbers. I'm a bit of a math girl. I've mentioned that on the show before. So Trump needs to win 53% of the delegates that are left, but Ted Cruz needs to win more than 82% of the delegates that are left. John Kasich needs to win 117% of the delegates that are left. So in other words, it's totally impossible for him. Does that, I mean, by Cruz and Kasich staying in at this point, all they're trying to do is deny Trump the requisite number. Does that mean both of them are helping Hillary Clinton? Lee, what do you think?
I don't think they're helping Hillary Clinton at this point. I do think that they're trying to hurt Donald Trump. I do believe, too, that Ted Cruz thinks there still is a path forward. I think that he believes it, and he's going out there every day. He's waking up every morning. He's telling himself that, and he's still convincing his voters that there's a path forward. Kasich, I'm not exactly sure what he's doing. I'm not sure. There are folks out there who are saying he's just trying to prevent Cruz from getting it, and that, in fact, that maybe Kasich and Trump are going to be a pair, and they're going to be running mates. So who knows?
Rebecca, what do you think? I mean, what do you make of the delegate mass so far? If I had to get up and go out on the campaign trail and I knew I needed to win 117% of what's left in order to win, it would be pretty tough to get out of bed.
Well, the argument that Kasich was making today, actually, on the campaign trail was that it helps Republicans who don't want Trump to be the nominee to have him in the race. His argument is that he can win in states moving forward where Ted Cruz won't be able to. For example, states like Pennsylvania, states that we think about as more moderate states on the primary calendar. So his argument is that he is doing Republicans a service by staying in, and that his candidacy at this point makes it more likely that they will make it to a contested convention. Now, Cruz's allies are making the opposite argument. Right. We heard Mitt Romney say yesterday in a statement, or this week in a statement prior to the Utah primary, that a vote for John Kasich at this point is a vote vote for Donald Trump. And so there is some disagreement in the Republican Party on that.
Yeah, without question. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's widening lead over the GOP pack, the billionaire businessman soaring above his rivals with 43% of the vote. When it comes to a head-to-head matchup, Ohio Governor John Kasich is the only Republican that beats Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders in November. This is all according to a new Quinnipiac poll. Lee, let me start with you. See, I never know what to make of these polls because sometimes people say, well, you know, this is sort of a general poll that doesn't mean a lot because, of course, when it comes to the actual election day, it's about the Electoral College. It's not just a general across-the-country election. So this doesn't necessarily tell you that much. What do you think? I mean, how much credence do you give polls like this one?
Not much. I think at this point we're so far away from, like, we haven't even started the general election. I do think, you know, there's so many things that we can look at. But one thing I would say is this. We've seen the front runners. Everybody has criticized their front runners for so long that we know so many of their flaws that it's not surprising that they're not going to be winning against Hillary Clinton right now. Kasich is sort of a golden child still. He's unscathed in many ways. So it's not surprising that he would beat Hillary Clinton in a poll right now. We haven't seen the worst. We haven't seen the real election, the matchup between them. So I'm not surprised at this point. We haven't, you know, I think that there's a long way to go. I think if you think about it, June 15th, which isn't that long ago, June 15th, they said that Jeb Bush would have beat Hillary Clinton handily, and look at where he is today. So we're a long way out.
Rebecca, how much credence do you give polls like this one?
Well, Lane makes a good point that John Kasich is relatively untested because he's kind of been sitting in the background, not getting much attention, not really threatening the front runners in this race at any stage. He hasn't been the target of this sort of negative advertising that we've seen Ted Cruz or Donald Trump be the target of, or at earlier stages in the campaign, candidates like Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio. So he hasn't yet been subjected to the sort of scrutiny that might affect his poll numbers in that sort of matchup. But one point I would make, and the point that John Kasich is making, is that this shows that he is electable in a general election. This is basically his whole claim to his candidacy at this point, that he is the Republican best positioned to move forward and face Hillary Clinton. But then the problem for John Kasich is that part of that polling shows that he is a more moderate Republican candidate, so he's attracting Democratic votes, independent votes. That doesn't really help him in a Republican primary, and you've got to survive the primary if you can get to that matchup in the general election.
Right, and he's got to win 117% of what's left. There's that hurdle as well. Guys,
or he's talking about a contested convention at this point.
I was being a little sarcastic. Yeah. Thank you. All right, David.
Tough to get 170%.
It really is.